Coming up tonight on Wales at 6.
Daddy's here. Daddy's here, mate. It's okay. It's all right.
The unbearable seizures Bailey suffers every day. His parents say it's unforgivably cruel they're not being prescribed medicinal cannabis for their son.
He hasn't got a voice. We're his voice, and we're going to shout as loud as we need to shout together.
All right,
mate.
Also tonight, how half a mile separates this woman from the cancer treatment that could prolong her life. Plus, would you switch how a lack of charging points are putting people off going electric?
And on the day before spring officially starts, I'm here to learn about lambing and what it takes to look after these little ones.
Good evening. The parents of a boy with severe epilepsy have told Wales at 6 that it's unforgivably cruel that they can't get medicinal cannabis prescribed for their son. Bailey Williams from Cardiff has continual seizures. His family say the drug could provide relief. Well, today, campaigners across the UK delivered a petition to Downing Street. They claim NHS doctors are failing to prescribe the drug, even though the law now says they can. Our health reporter James Crichton-Smith has Bailey's story. You may find the start of his report upsetting.
Bailey's slipping into a seizure. It's too distressing to show.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right, sweetheart. It's all right.
It's all right. It's okay. Daddy's by the side of you. It's all right. Okay.
Posted online by his parents, these are the moments after. Soothed by his dad, Craig, and mum, Rachel, who feel helpless. They currently give Bailey a form of cannabis oil, which they buy themselves, but want him to have a stronger version on prescription. They say it'll reduce the seizures and improve his quality of life, and that despite a law change meaning they could get it, they're being denied.
We've got to try something because this is his last chance. He's got nothing left to try, you know? And I just think it's absolutely ludicrous that they won't allow us to do that. You know, we're talking about somebody's life.
When you're told by a neurologist that there's no more medication out there for physically try, you look for alternative therapies. That's where we come across CBD oil. What would those politicians, what would Matt Hancock do in that situation if he had a kid who was poorly enough to warrant an alternative therapy like cannabis? I'm sure he'd be as desperate as we are to try and get it on for his kids. It's just, you wouldn't treat an animal like it. So why are they allowing kids to be treated like it? It's just wrong, isn't it?
Today, Craig and Rachel were in Westminster lobbying the UK government to make access to medicinal cannabis easier. The Department for Health says specialist doctors can now prescribe cannabis-based medical products if there is clinical evidence of benefit, and has asked for new guidelines to be drawn up.
He's got no voice. He hasn't got a voice. We're his voice, and we're going to shout as loud as we need to shout together.
All right,
mate. All right. Okay. Okay. There you go. That's a small one. That's the type of thing you'll have continuously, and hopefully you won't go into a big one. But see, this what happens. It's disrupting his sleep. So this will happen through the night continuously, which then in turn disrupts mum and dad, doesn't it, mate?
Bailey's parents there, and as you can see, James has joined me in the studio for more on this. James, harrowing story there from the parents of Bailey. This is quite confusing though, isn't it? Because the law was changed last year, yet parents say they're still not being prescribed cannabis. What's going on?
That's absolutely right. The thing that I keep hearing again and again is that doctors seemingly are nervous about prescribing. This is, after all, a very new thing. There are only 8 prescriptions in the whole of the UK for cannabis-based medication like this. There is clearly a concern in the medical community about what potential damage would be caused if they were to prescribe this medication. But speak to Craig and Rachel and they say, well, look at the damage that's being caused every time he has a seizure. Surely they'd rather take a chance, they say, on this medication. One Welsh MP who met Craig and Rachel today had this message for the UK government.
Get these prescriptions to the children, get the clinicians informed, have everybody around the table talking, and let's move. You don't change the law to not be able to implement it.
Obviously a view shared by Bailey's parents, but of course how easy it'll be to free up the flow of these medications remains to be seen.
OK, James, I'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Now, questions have been asked in the Senedd today about the role of faith schools' sex education lessons. It comes after a gay teacher at a Catholic school told this programme that he was ordered to teach pupils that homosexuality was a sin. Our national correspondent Rob Osborne is at the Senedd for us this evening. Rob, what's the background to this?
Well, Kylie, we are planning to change the way we teach sex and relationship education in Wales. And we've also told you about that in the past, but we've also told you about the way faith schools in Wales still have the ability to teach the subject provided in a certain way that is consistent with their ethos, with their beliefs. Now, when it comes to certain subjects, like gay relationships or contraception or divorce, then faiths can sometimes take a stance. And we told you last month about how one Catholic school in Wales had on its website that its church did not believe that sexual acts between persons of the same sex were morally right in principle. And we heard from Bleddyn Harris, a gay teacher who reminded us what had happened in a previous school he taught in and what he had to tell the children.
Having signed on the dotted line, I've agreed to sign in the Catholic way, and they wanted to just reinforce some of those messages, one of which, the first of which they reiterated, was that I should teach that pupils that homosexuality is a sin in the eyes of the church. I obviously told them that I am a gay man and that I would not be doing that because it's the pupils' well-being, such as their mental health, which comes first.
Well, today Adam Price, leader of Plaid Cymru, who is himself, of course, gay, raised the question in the Assembly of why this is still allowed to happen in faith schools, and he also brought in his own experience of growing up.
In the 1980s, I was told myself, right, I hope to goodness gracious that you don't end up gay, right? It wasn't acceptable then. It's certainly not acceptable now. And it's the duty of government, when we're talking about publicly funded schools, it's the duty of government to make it absolutely clear that should never be on a school website. That should never be the experience of a teacher.
Rob, did the First Minister have any knowledge of these claims by teachers?
Well, listening to Mark Drakeford, it did seem to me that it was the first time he had heard this. A reminder that we did broadcast this for the first time last month. He did say that faith schools do have certain freedoms, but he condemned what had happened to Bleddyn Harris.
It is entirely unacceptable to me that the sorts of views that he reported should be expressed in any of our schools. And I want to associate myself directly with what he said about the unacceptability of those sorts of views being promulgated in any classroom of any sort and in any part of Wales.
Well, the First Minister can condemn it and say it's wrong, but what's not clear is if the rules are not changing, what's to stop this happening again in the future?
OK, Rob Osborne, thank you very much. Next tonight, the 3-minute drive that's separating a woman from the cancer treatment that could prolong her life. Joanna Horton has terminal cervical cancer. She's just 47 and has 2 children. She lives in Chirk near Wrexham on the Welsh border. She says that because she lives in Wales, she's being denied a drug that she would be given just half a mile away in England. Ian Lang has been to meet her.
Joanna Horton simply won't accept that because she lives in Wales, she can't have a life-prolonging cancer drug. And living as she does in Chirk, there's also a cruel irony. Because the border with England, where the drug Avastin is available, is just 10 minutes walk away from her home.
Basically, I'm literally 0.5 of a mile, half a mile away from of England. It's literally a postcode lottery. And to be told that you sign a consent to have a drug that your consultant in Clatterbridge Cancer Centre wants you to have, to then be told, no, you can't have it because you live in Wales. And it is, as I say, upsetting and extremely frustrating.
Joanna was diagnosed with cervical cancer in 2016 when she was given between 5 and 7 years. The cancer has since spread, so any extra time this drug could give would be precious.
A day, anything, extra time to be with my family and to see my children actually, as they grow up, get married, have children. I feel that might be taken away from me. And it is upsetting. And I do have days where I feel extremely upset and also frustrated by it.
When you've got a friend who's needing that treatment or needing that certain drug to prolong their life and they can't because of a postcode, that's frustrating and upsetting.
She's won support from a campaigner for access to new cancer drugs who has described her situation as unjust.
So this new drug is the first new drug for patients with secondary cancer, cervical cancer like Joanna, can use. So what they're actually saying is, Joanna, sorry, we've got nothing for you. We can't give you something that's licensed and is available in most of the Western world, England and Scotland, because I'm afraid you're Welsh.
The Welsh Government say the All Wales Medicine Strategy Group has examined the evidence for using Avastin and has recommended against routine use. But Joanna intends to continue her fight to get the drug she believes could give her precious time with the people she loves. Ian Lang, ITV News, Chirk.
Next night on this evening's programme, are you thinking of getting a new car? Well, many drivers in Wales have considered going green and getting an electric one, but the cost and a lack of charging points put many off. Of the 1.5 million cars registered in Wales, only 2,500 are electric. A report says the Welsh Government has been slow in showing leadership. It doesn't run a single electric vehicle, while Swansea Council has 40. Mike Griffiths has more.
My main motivation was environmental. I didn't want to get another sort of petrol or diesel vehicle.
Rob Proctor is a committed electric car driver, and he wouldn't go back.
I use it a lot for meetings, travelling around. Most of our sort of daily sort of, I travel with the kids, taking them to clubs and whatever else, those sorts of things.
Rob charges his car at home. Fully charged, he can drive it for more than 150 miles. But he's reliant on finding a charging point that's open to the public.
The big challenge is knowing where you're going to be able to charge up. Some parts of the country, the UK, that's not an issue, but particularly in sort of rural parts of Wales, it's a really big issue. I do a lot of work in Wales, travelling around Wales, and that's one of the biggest challenges I have is actually, can I get to meetings and back?
AM say the Welsh Government should be doing more to build the charging network. In Monmouthshire, this community energy firm has installed dozens for the public.
One of the problems we saw with these was the difficulty with payment system on them. So we've found some laundry equipment which has got contactless card operation, and we've modified it to work the charge points. We have a lot of houses in Wales with no off-road parking. So there is a big demand to be met there. Something like a facility like this in a town car park is ideal for them to have a charge, and then they can have electric cars.
This is one of the slower ones around, but you think there's a merit in that?
Well, what we think is that the rapid chargers, they're very expensive, so we wanted to address that by having ones for people who were what we call destination charging. So if they come to town and they're going to spend, say, 3 hours either shopping or eating in a restaurant, so our chargers are designed to deliver.
The Welsh Government says it will respond fully in due course. It adds it'll use public money where there is market failure. But campaigners warn an opportunity is in danger of being missed. Mike Griffiths, ITV News.
And you're watching Wales at 6. Still to come as spring approaches, we're live in a sheep shed. And Max, I hear there are plenty of new arrivals there.
Well, yes, Kylie, lambing season is well and truly underway, which only means one thing: spring is nearly here. But join me later in the programme where I'll find out exactly how you look after a few of these little ones.
That's still to come, but first, if you live in Newport West to be exact, polling stations will be open on the 4th of April to elect a new MP. The by-election's been called following the death of veteran Labour MP Paul Flynn. There are 11 candidates, and our political reporter Sean Jenkins has been asking people who live there what issues matter to them the most.
Westminster is a very noisy place at the moment. But in the midst of all the loud voices, it's easy to forget that there's one Welsh constituency which is currently voiceless. Newport West is a seat which Labour's Paul Flynn took from the Conservatives in 1987 and which he held on to until his death last month. At the last election in 2017, Flynn won with a majority of just over 8,000 votes and had built up a very strong personal following. But on the 4th of April, the voters here will head to the polls to elect his successor. You're going to vote?
Yeah.
Do you know which party you vote for?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Labour.
Labour.
I vote for UKIP.
You vote for UKIP?
Yeah.
Why will you vote for
Because
UKIP?
I don't trust the mainstream. I don't trust the mainstream parties no more.
I've always been a lifelong Tory. I will not vote for them ever again in my lifetime.
Because of Brexit?
Mainly because of Brexit. They've totally ignored it with the people. They've ignored their own agenda in the last elections campaigns, and they're unfortunately pushing people like myself into the extreme parties.
After Paul Flynn's excellent performance for the last God knows how long, I'll be supporting the Labour Party.
The Labour candidate hoping to follow in the footsteps of Paul Flynn is Ruth Jones. But will she be able to ride the wave of Flynn's success and keep Newport West red?
Well, there are a few issues. Crime is one of them. Universal credits, PIP, how people are being affected by these things adversely, and those are really important issues here.
You didn't mention Brexit there. Have you not heard an awful lot about Brexit on the doorstep?
It's variable. Some people are, talking about Brexit, but obviously things that are going on in the House I can't influence. So, we're having to say, yeah, we hear what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm only a candidate at the moment.
So I said, Mrs Davis.
One man who's being bombarded with Brexit questions is the Leave-voting Conservative candidate, Matthew Evans. He says he's trying to concentrate on local issues, such as the M4 relief road and council tax rises.
Are you embarrassed to have to campaign for a party that's made such a mess of Brexit?
Well, I'd say all politicians ought to be ashamed of themselves at the moment. It's not just about the Conservative Party, and I'm knocking on doors here, and there's a lot of people who say exactly the same about all politicians. I campaigned to leave the European Union, and I want to ensure that we do, but I understand people who wanted to remain. But the vast majority of people I see on the doorstep don't want a second referendum. They don't want another general election. They want us to get on and do it.
But for the Lib Dems, a second referendum is an absolute must.
On Brexit, we're looking for a people's vote. That's what we're pushing for as a party nationally. And most importantly, we're campaigning, particularly in Newport, for infrastructure. We need increased spending to help get Newport moving again.
Thank you very much.
Something which many say would get Newport moving again is the M4 relief road. But for the Plaid Cymru candidate, that isn't the answer.
If they build the M4 relief road, that could be £2 billion, which will just be lost to build a project that's never really going to deliver for the people of Newport, let alone the people of South Wales. On the 4th of April, we've got a real opportunity to do something different and radical in Newport, and that radical alternative is Plaid Cymru.
UKIP have announced they are now anti-devolution, but Brexit as ever is at the top of their candidate Neil Hamilton's agenda.
I say to any Brexiteer in Newport, if you really want to force Theresa May and the EU into a corner and get what we voted for 2.5 years ago, vote for me.
And for the Greens, it's all about their Green New Deal.
That'll be about making sure that we alleviate poverty through investment and jobs, making sure we have a sustainable transport network rather than a new M4 relief road, and making sure that we're tackling things like energy.
As well as the usual suspects, there are also a few lesser-known parties hoping to capitalise on the current political turmoil. Renew are the new kids on the block. They describe themselves as a party of people from outside politics who've come together to fix the problems of a post-Brexit UK.
We really need to find ways of joining up the dots, really, to make sure that all the different parts of our democracy in Wales, the local authorities and Parliament are working together, and that's what we stand for.
As well as the emergence of new parties, this by-election will also see a blast from the past, in the form of the SDP.
Well, the SDP these days is a Eurosceptic party, so we believe in Brexit. It's all about common sense politics for decent people.
Another Eurosceptic party standing will be the Democrats and Veterans.
We're about direct democracy and applying the will of the people, which isn't what's being done at the moment.
And despite this being a Westminster by-election, the Abolish the Welsh Assembly Party will also feature on the ballot paper. And as their name suggests, they're standing to promote one thing and one thing only.
Our one only policy, and that's the abolition of the Welsh Assembly.
And Hugh Nicklin is standing for the For Britain movement. A total of 11 candidates standing on April the 4th, when the people of Newport West will decide who they want as their voice in the Commons.
Sean Jenkins reporting there. Now, as Wales's Grand Slam celebrations come to an end, can our football stars fill the void? Wales play their first Euro 2020 qualifier this weekend against Slovakia at Cardiff City. But first, there's a friendly tomorrow night in Wrexham against Trinidad and Tobago. Rob Shelley reports from Manchester, where the team are training, and there's some flash photography.
That's tighten things up at the back. Trusted Trader, sponsoring ITV Cymru Wales Sports Report.
TrustedTrader.com.
Big red sign, big red training ground, and on the pitch, big hopes dressed in, you guessed it, red. Wales manager Ryan Giggs possibly knows every corner of the Carrington training ground. His team had the same sort of energy normally kept for the first day at school. It's been 4 months since Wales played together as a team. At least they look like they missed each other. Tomorrow, though, a friendly against Trinidad and Tobago, the North's first international fixture for a decade.
Here, it's a friendly. I wanted a full house, which it looks like we're going to get, rather than, potentially a half-empty stadium. And what I've said about a thank you to the fans in the North as well, having a game on their doorstep, which doesn't happen very often.
Now, football's no stranger to irony, but today's a bit of an irony of geography, really, because whilst Wales are playing their friendly against Trinidad and Tobago at Wrexham's Racecourse Ground tomorrow, they're actually training here in England at Manchester United's very impressive Carrington complex, whilst Wrexham's Colliers Park training ground is being redeveloped.
I was here for so long, and it was part of the reason why I wanted to come here, because I know the people here and I could trust them, and knew that the facilities would be great and the players would enjoy it, especially them younger players. And
if the answer to whether Wales can make it to their second Euro finals is out there, then the football history is possibly going to be written by those players who aren't yet household names.
Especially attacking wise, there's so much attacking talent within the squad now with those young kids that sometimes when you're even at the back, you're just watching them and it is exciting. So,
although there is one really quite famous player who, they hope, has just started another of his scoring streaks.
Yeah, it's good to get his first 90 minutes. I think it was for 3 months. So, yeah, I've said before what a talent he is. And, if he plays games, he'll score goals. And, any manager would want him in your team.
But it isn't Gareth Bale and 10 other players. Today's all about showing just how strong that team ethic is. Tomorrow, they put it into practice. Rob Shelley, ITV News, near Manchester.
Now it's almost 23 minutes past 6. Still to come before 7.
The government finally admits Brexit is in crisis.
Do you deny you were meeting the Prime Minister, Mr Johnson?
With more frantic meetings at Westminster, Theresa May prepares to ask the EU for more time. Hundreds feared dead in a killer cyclone that hit 3 countries in southern Africa. Here, families take their fight for legalised cannabis to Westminster. And the house-proud mouse caught on camera tidying a shed. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
But now it's weather time and Ruth is here. It seems spring is in the air.
It does indeed, yes, absolutely, at long last. Well, here's the thing, astronomical spring actually starts tomorrow. Although with the weather that we've had recently, you could, well, frankly, be forgiven for not noticing. Thankfully, though, the signs are there. Daffodils, shops full of Easter eggs, and lots of lambs. There they are. Now, here's a question. Have you ever fancied trying your hand at a spot of lambing? Well, who wouldn't? St Fagans Museum in Cardiff is running a lambing course for complete beginners, and Max Walsh is there. Max, it seems you're in the middle of something of a baby boom there.
Well, you're absolutely right, Ruth. I'm here where nearly 250 lambs have been born here in the last few weeks. I'm at a farm at the St Fagans Museum, and staff really have been working round the clock to make sure all the lambs are delivered safely. Just a few hours ago, triplets were born in one of the pens next door. It is a hugely busy time for the staff, and the man in charge of that is farm manager Brian. He's got a lovely little lamb here. Firstly, Brian, how old is this little fella?
He's about 3 or 4 days old.
So he's forgiven for looking a little bit tired?
Yes.
And Brian, tell me, how well has lambing gone for you so far this season?
Lambing has gone really well for us this season. The biggest issue we've had in the last couple of days has been the weather, that it's been so cold and wet that we haven't been able to turn a lot of these ewes and lambs back out onto grass. So the other thing is, it's just having a good team of people
A good team of people. Yeah, you mentioned a good team of people there. I have to stop you there because one of your excellent team are just inside the pen. So look, we'll just open the door here and see if we can go inside and try not to let any of the lambs out. There's a little one there. They do get a bit jumpy as we walk past. Now, Emma has been working here for nearly 2 decades now. So she's got a wealth of experience, and she is actually responsible for running a course teaching people how to do lambing. And you've also got a little one with you here now. Emma, tell me a little bit about the course and how that works.
Okay, so we run 3 one-day courses over the lambing period, and anybody's welcome to come. You can either be somebody who keeps sheep and wants to learn how to lamb, or somebody that just wants to come along for a taster experience. Everybody is welcome, and you can get as hands-on as you like.
And it must be an incredibly rewarding job. I know it must be full on, but you must really enjoy what you do.
It's a very rewarding job, seeing all the lambs born and being able to help them, and especially here because we do it all in front of the visitors as well, who get to see absolutely everything we do. So the kids get to see, baby lambs being born.
It is a lovely sight, and it's lovely to see them all. And now Brian did mention the weather a little bit earlier on, which does of course affect the lambs. And with spring on the way, is the weather going to improve, Ruth?
Max, thank you so much. I sincerely hope so, Kylie.
Yeah.
I tell you, you and I both here going, oh.
I know, it's the noise they make, isn't it?
I know,
It's so
just
cute.
So sweet. And of course, what lambs at this time of the year want to feel is the warm sunshine on their backs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just like the rest of us, quite frankly. And actually, I have a little bit of good news on the weather front. Can you believe it? At long, long last, because high pressure now dominates our weather story. OK, it's not wall-to-wall sunshine and blue skies because we've got frontal systems just skirting to the north of us. But on the whole, we've got a couple of relatively dry days, some breaks in the cloud allowing the sun to shine. And actually, because I can just about make them out, these white arrows that show the southerly airflow, that means actually temperature-wise, things are on the up. So that warm sunshine we were talking about, well, we just might see it.
Let's go.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Cymru Wales weather.
So all in all then, today turned out quite nicely in the end, with a lucky few enjoying the odd sliver of sunshine. I say sliver because there wasn't a great deal of it, but certainly better than nothing. And there's more in the way of cloud in the skies building already out there as we head into the overnight stretch. Not particularly pleasant, low-lying cloud, mist and fog gathering, particularly around the hills and mountains and out towards coastal areas. It's because there's very little in the way of a wind to speak of, very, very gentle breeze. Temperature-wise, though, look at this, incredibly mild because of that cloud. It's effectively acting as a bit of a blanket, if you like. So we're looking at lows tonight of around 8 or 9 in Celsius. So in some spots, not really dropping away at all from daytime temperatures. For the time of year, that is not bad. So a mild but very, very murky start then to tomorrow morning. Again, we could see the odd spot of patchy rain and drizzle over the hills, but on the whole, as the day wears on, things will shape up very, very nicely. The cloud will start to lift and we'll see some really lovely spells of sunshine yet again. And throw into the mix that southerly airflow. You can see the temperatures already rising on today's values, and today was very good indeed for the time of year. Tomorrow, well, I've put highs of 13 or 14 on the map. Under those sunnier skies, though, we could hit 15 or 16 in Celsius, which, again, is very fine indeed. So as far as the rest of the week is concerned, it is a little bit hit and miss. It is not going to be bright blue skies and wall-to-wall sunshine, but actually it could be an awful lot worse. So Thursday is looking largely grey and overcast with some sunny spells. And then by the time we get to Friday, typically we'll see more in the way of wet weather in the forecast. But the temperatures will remain on the mild side throughout.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Cymru Wales weather.
You know it's a decent forecast when you get to say it could be an awful lot worse.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Could be an awful lot worse.
Thanks very much. Now, just before we go, don't forget to check out our Instagram page. Just head to the app and search for ITV Wales. Click on our logo to see the latest videos and pictures on our story, where you can still relive the Grand Slam celebrations at the Zenith last night. And that's it for now. I'll be back, though, with your late news after news at 10 from all of us here. Thanks very much for watching, even. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.